Donald Trump and the Republican Party, under the Republican Party's command, the USDA, the FDA, all of our federal agencies are actually serving not the interests of the public, but working against them. And one of the things that they tried to do was to suspend SNAP funding. Now, SNAP funding is slated to run out because the government is shut down at this point. But there is a $6 billion contingency fund for emergencies for when SNAP funding dries up. Emergencies such as this circumstance. Because if SNAP, the nutritional assistance program, the supplemental nutritional assistance program specifically, were to run out, 42 million Americans that rely on SNAP to be able to purchase food every single week would now no longer have this additional assistance and would not be able to eat at least one meal, maybe two, depending on whether they have children, depending on the number of dependents. Wealthiest country on the planet, by the way. Wealthiest country on the planet, just want to remind you. And yet, even though there was a 1 month contingency fund, because that's how much it would cost for a month, around $6 billion or so, the government tried to say, no, we're going to starve the American population. We're going to starve 42 billion people on U.S. soil. American citizens, by the way. Remember, these are almost all American citizens. Like the only marginal assistance that like somehow some undocumented person could get from SNAP is if they have American citizens in their houses. Oh, did I say 42 billion? I'm sorry. 42 million Americans that rely on food assistance programs, specifically SNAP, and to fund that for at least a month is $6 billion. Now, these funds exist. The administration tried to stop using the contingency funds, and then, of course, they were sued, and a judge ruled that Trump's attempt to suspend SNAP funding was unlawful. Think about how insane this is, by the way. Let me pull you back for a brief moment. Why is this happening? Why is the government shut down? The government is shut down because the funds, the government to fund itself, you need to pass a bill. And in order to pass a bill, you can't have a simple majority. You need 7 additional Democrats to be able to pass this bill in Congress, pass this spending bill in Congress. This is a point of leverage that the Democrats have, one of the few points of leverage that the minority party has. Democrats have used this as an opportunity to try and force the Republicans to concede on funding Medicaid subsidies, ACA subsidies, so that people's health care for tens of millions of Americans, their health care prices are about to triple, okay? Their premiums are about to triple. And the Democrats say, we can't do that. We have to make sure that healthcare is still somewhat more affordable than it used to be. Obviously, it's already very unaffordable. It's already very expensive. But the fact that healthcare prices are about to triple and the Democrats are trying to stop it and using the government shutdown as a way to bargain with the Republicans to save majority Republicans, by the way, because when you look at the actual percentages of the population that rely on ACA subsidies, is 58% Republican. And not only that, but there's also a secondary impact, which is that a lot of places that have rural hospitals rely on these Medicaid subsidies because that's the only way that poor rural areas can even go and get the necessary health care and fund these hospitals in general when they're already in a dire state. So the Democrats are trying to save Republican voters from their own party in this circumstance, which is why I've obviously backed the Democratic Party in this shutdown. They've done the right thing. Now, Democrats are trying to get the Republicans to do the right thing, and the Republicans are saying no. They are trying to leverage the starvation of 42 million Americans in an effort not to fund healthcare subsidies for another 10 million to 20 million Americans. That is what's so crazy about this argument. Now this judge has declared Trump's attempts to suspend SNAP funding, the $6 billion in contingency funds, to not use the $6 billion in contingency funds to be unlawful.
So, Catherine, a judge says that Trump's attempt to suspend SNAP is unlawful. What more? He didn't mention anything about it there on the tarmac, but what more do we know?
This was a hearing that was heard yesterday on an emergency basis to try and get a judge to restore those funds that will be lost, Kira, as you say, at midnight. So this federal judge in Boston did rule that the administration's attempt to suspend the SNAP funding, as you mentioned, is unlawful, but that judge declined to issue an immediate order ordering that the program be funded by the federal government.
I saw someone say, at least Mary Antoinette said, let them eat cake, lol. Yeah. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is saying, let them eat ballroom. It's even fucking dumber than that. He just keeps droning on and on about his fucking stupid ass ballroom, brother, is even stupider. Donald Trump's like, yeah, you can't afford a cake. It's fine. You don't need it. You don't need cake. But what you can eat is this beautiful ballroom. Can you believe it? This beautiful ballroom that I have designed. By the way, dude, look at this. I mean, 1-to-1. Oh my God. The Trump kid is alive and well. 42 million people on food stamps are 10 hours away from losing their benefits. When I first learned a toilet like that existed inside the White House, I was horrified. President Trump is making people's house more elegant and beautiful for generations to come. Dude, they are dabbing on us, okay? And not even just us, because we are already angry at Trump. We did not vote for Trump. But this is literally straight up disrespect to the millions of Trump voters that are not going to get their SNAP benefits. They are going to starve. And Donald Trump and his press secretary talking about a toilet, dude. Anyway, that sucks about your kid. What was the thing he needed to live? Medicaid or something? That's where we're at. People are going to starve, okay? People are going to starve. And the admin's talking about toilets. It is fucking awesome. I have not seen a group of people so ready to be publicly debased, so ready to be ritualistically humiliated than the average Trump-supporting Republican. Whether it be the farmers that kept voting for Donald Trump in spite of the fact that he fucked them over time and time again, whether it be the ranchers that are experiencing the same as the Trump administration is now slated to flood the markets with Argentinian beef. I have never seen a group of individuals that are so servile, so unhuman. I don't know how else to describe it. Like so excited at the prospect of being humiliated, being destroyed by this godlike deity that they've cultivated in their minds. It is crazy. It is straight up a cult. An entire nation of cuck fetishists.
The judge dismissing the administration's explanation, saying, I want agency action, not lawyering. We're not going to make everyone drop dead. The judge could compel the administration to release the funds, but whether the Trump administration will comply remains to be seen. And even if it does, the emergency funding available would still fall short of the monthly SNAP payouts. Back on Capitol Hill, Democrats digging in, refusing to open the government until Republicans agreed to extend Obamacare subsidies to prevent healthcare insurance premiums from skyrocketing next year. A Utah woman we spoke to says even with the subsidies, her premium next year will rise from $495 to $753. And without the subsidies, it will more than quadruple to more than $2,100.
I want to also give you guys a better understanding of how fucked this structure is. Are you ready for this? Because a lot of people go, oh, why are my tax dollars paying to fucking, I don't know, feed the people who are hungry, which is if you're an evil villain like that. If you are straightforwardly an evil villain such as that, the average American taxpayer spends $36 per year for the SNAP program. $36 comes out of your pocket if you're an average tax-paying American citizen. The average American taxpayer, however, spends $670 per year on corporate subsidies. $670 on corporate subsidies, $36 to feed people. How fucking insane. And there are still people out there who act as though these people who desperately need the additional funds, which are modest, which are meager, they are tiny. There are still people who complain about that. Incredible. Also, just like the secondary impact of refusing to fund ACA subsidies will cause rural hospitals to collapse completely. What remains of the rural hospital system will completely go away. But when you cut SNAP benefits, to 42 million Americans, you're cooking the grocery stores because they also, like, those SNAP benefits are being spent on groceries at the grocery stores. So it's basically another way that you are cooking an entire sector.
Republicans argue the Affordable Care Act, which set up Obamacare, was a bad law that drives up premiums and strains doctors. President Trump last night posting, quote, Obamacare is a disaster. Rates are going through the roof for really bad health care. Do something, Democrats.
His alternative to that is just complete chaos and complete bedlam. It's not like the alternative he's suggesting is Medicare for all, by the way. His alternative is just make it even more costly, because that's what this is. That's what's going on. Oh, God. Everything sucks so much ass. Oh, my God. SNAP makes up around 12% of grocery sales nationally, according to the National Grocers Association, a pro-business trade group that represents grocers. Any extended gap in SNAP payments is likely to see layoffs and possibly even store closures. Remember that. This isn't just cities. Rural areas benefit from SNAP, per the Conservative American Enterprise Institute. SNAP reduces rural poverty. Unmet needs still high in rural areas. Despite robust support from SNAP, food hardship is still higher in non-metro areas. Just like with Medicaid helping fund rural hospitals, SNAP helps fund grocery chains that are in rural areas. Who lives in rural areas, you might ask? Republicans. That's who. Republicans are dangling the starvation of their own base of support against not giving them the proper healthcare subsidies. Okay? It's f***ing insane. This is what happens when you are so successful that you just have to figure out exactly how cruel you want to be, in which direction. Why not both?
Good morning, everyone. President Trump says enough is enough. It is time to nuke the filibuster and reopen the government. Here's what he posted last night on Truth Social. It's now time for Republicans to play their Trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option. Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now. That would allow Senate Republicans to reopen the government on their own, even though Senate leaders generally don't like the idea of ending the filibuster. But pressure is mounting. Troops are getting paid today after the Pentagon shifted some funds around, but federal SNAP benefits run out this weekend, and we're already seeing major flight disruptions in places like Orlando and here in Washington.
Look, it could be a disaster. It really could be, because at that point you're talking about people have missed 3 paychecks. They've missed 4 paychecks. What happens when pilots start not showing up for work because they're so focused on paying the bills they can't fly the plane safely? That's going to lead to massive delays. We want people to be able to get home for Thanksgiving.
Okay, then give the people the ACA subsidies. Give the people the ACA subsidies. What are we talking about? Whose fault could that be? Who controls the entire government, I wonder? It's f***ing nutty, dude.
Staffing issues at major airports causing gridlock in the skies. The FAA forced to slow air traffic around Chicago, Dallas, Fort Worth, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, and others as some air traffic controllers working without pay for weeks call out. And this morning fears a hunger crisis is now on the horizon. SNAP food assistance, a lifeline for roughly 42 million low-income Americans, now set to run out of money by the end of the week.
It's time to call on people to donate. Absolutely. And time to call on government officials to get back to work.
The USDA posting a partisan message on its website blaming Democrats for the shutdown, saying the well has run dry and appearing to contradict their earlier plan to potentially use available emergency funds to cover food assistance during a shutdown. In Massachusetts, where more than 1 million people will lose SNAP benefits, Democratic Governor...
Guys, don't worry. Please. 40 million Americans might actually lose access to SNAP and therefore succumb to starvation, but Argentina is still getting $40 billion. I know some of you were worried. You were thinking, well, what about Argentina? What if they default on their debt? I've dumped billions of dollars into Argentine debt. I know that was a major consideration. Fear not. Maybe some of you were worried, 40 million Americans might be starving. But what about the ballroom? Fear not. The East Wing of the White House is demolished and the ballroom project continues. I know you might say, Hasan, who cares about 40 million Americans that might have to go and find food elsewhere, to go to food banks? Who cares about all of that? Are we going to war with Venezuela or not? And to them I say, fear not. We have sent aircraft carriers. We are still going to war with Venezuela. So if those are the factors and your priorities here, There is no reason for you to be afraid. 40 million hungry mouths, but the American war machine continues. So we can collectively release a sigh of relief. We're good, boys. Don't worry.
President Trump has chosen to stop all SNAP benefits to Americans starting next week. Leadership is a choice. And sadly, President Trump has chosen to take away food from people all around this country.
And in Michigan, families also bracing for the worst. With more than 1 million SNAP recipients in this state, too, food pantries asking for donations to meet demand.
We have over 1.4 million recipients on the program here in the state of Michigan, so there will be an influx of more people coming to our food pantry lines.
On Capitol Hill, no end in sight to the stalemate. Democrats digging in, demanding Republicans negotiate on expiring Obamacare tax credits before premiums skyrocket for some 20 million Americans. Republicans largely united, saying they won't negotiate until...
Oh, nice. No, that's chill, man. Republicans showing that they are refusing to negotiate with the Democrats when the Democrats have any leverage whatsoever. That certainly gives a lot of assurance to the minority party that you guys will, in good faith, negotiate with the Democrats when they have zero leverage. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, but that's populist Josh Hawley, chat. I like that in the United States of America, while our foreign adversary China is building massive bridges, inventing new types of bone glue, creating flying cars that they're actively trying to commercialize, we have the majority controlling party refuse to offer healthcare subsidies to tens of millions of Americans in an effort not to triple their healthcare premiums. And the only point of leverage here is whether or not 40 million Americans can be fed. Like, the only reason why the Democrats are making a big stink about this is unironically so that the Republican voters don't get cooked by triple the cost of their healthcare premiums and just get kicked out of coverage. That's what this is for. It's one of the very few instances where the Democrats are actually doing the right thing. And even then, if they were to successfully pull this through, it's still a Band-Aid solution. Yeah, the USDA's own lapse of appropriations guidelines said it was going to pay out SNAP and WIC. They removed that guidance. Trump is directly starving people. Reminder that there's, in fact, an additional $5 billion in contingency SNAP funding put aside for this exact kind of situation that Republicans are refusing to use. I don't know why they're doing this. I'm being honest, because like they're already seen as the responsible party for the shutdown. The Republicans are. So I can't comprehend why they would further entertain being vilified. Maybe they just think that they can outmessage the Democrats. Paramount to cut 1,000 jobs. Amazon to cut as many as 30,000 jobs. Wonderful. Someone in the chat, as I'm in the process of describing 40 million people starving, turned around and said, well, let's not point the finger of blame at our politicians. I assume that was a take on the drama, right? Like, that's what you were trying to do. This is what I mean. You're like a very unserious person. Like, we're talking about 40 million people on the verge of hunger in the wealthiest nation on the planet. And you think you're going to get a own here. SNAP isn't replaceable by food pantries. It is a joke to act like hundreds of dollars a month versus expired bakery items and canned beans. Yeah. No, it's absolutely not a replacement. The Trump admin found $20 billion to bail out Argentina, but refused to tap into $6 billion reserve fund to provide vital food assistance to 42 million Americans. They're using food and hunger as leverage as they hold the government hostage. It's sickening. You said, let's just start stealing. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I think it's a mix of three things. One, they think they can out-message on it. Two, they hope the pressure from this in blue states makes Dems back down. Three, they hope it will incite violence and they can progress their plan. Yeah, I can see that. It's just cruelty politics, man. That's what this is. It's just cruelty for the sake of cruelty. That is what the modern Republican Party is. One might even say that's what they've always been. I would say that. But it's crazy that this is just melting the poor in principle. It also harms like capital as well, because this hurts farmers in the long run. This hurts grocery stores in the short term, because when you don't have SNAP, you don't have the additional assistance to go and purchase stuff that you normally would from the grocery store. So like this literally is cooking a whole bunch of different sectors as well. America's hunger crisis is growing. We're choosing to look away. States are sounding alarm bells that SNAP benefits will run out as soon as next week, and I can't stop thinking about Ruben and many others in his position. Ruben De Silva, a 79-year-old retired accountant who lives alone in New York City, experiences when he tries to prepare a meal or go to grocery shopping since his cerebral hemorrhage. His story reflects what I see every day. Older Americans are growing hungry behind closed doors. And while we're focused on the immediate crisis the government shutdown posed, we're already lost something far more permanent, our ability to see the next crisis coming. Last month, the Trump administration canceled the USDA's annual Household Food Security Report, the only national data source that measures hunger by age, disability status, and household composition. For the first time in 30 days, America will no longer track hunger nationwide. Without that data, millions of older adults like Ruben will vanquish from the view as the social safety net continues to collapse around them. That decision could not have come at a worse time. Beyond the imminent threat to SNAP, benefits have already been slashed in the long run by leaders in Washington. Meanwhile, inflation and new tariffs continue driving costs higher. In New York, grocery prices have risen more than 50% over the past decade, far outpacing wages and fixed retirement income. Those in need, including older Americans, are hit hardest by these cuts. I will say one thing. American stability, in spite of some of the worst aspects of capitalism, has always come from food and food prices in general. For everything that this government does, for all of the glaring, obvious telltale signs of economic volatility, economic instability, the one aspect of American existence is that you can at least purchase bread. You can at least fill your belly. And even that increased in prices. And it led to overthrowing Brandon. Inflation was a major factor in Biden losing control. Inflation played a major factor in Donald Trump winning the election. That's some third world cope. Really? I don't think you've ever seen true hunger. We have experienced it in the Great Depression. I don't think you understand what happens. We're not talking about just like Oreos or treats. We're talking straight up any kind of food. Every single revolution against monarchs has come from this. When a government can't feed its poor, when a government refuses to feed its needy and poor and tireless masses, it will no longer be able to continue its mandate of governance. Yeah, people in my country say this. I'm saying people in the third world say, at least we have bread. Oh, you're saying that's the cope that people in your developing nations say, at least I have bread. I mean, yeah, America is a third world country with a Gucci belt. This is true. But now the Gucci belt is coming off, is my point. My dad is on SNAP. This is his main source for food because he's 65 and disabled and cannot work. This is what he has, and I'm extremely worried. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that the reason why we have SNAP benefits and the reason why we have Medicaid assistance, these subsidies to begin with, is because of our overall refusal to solve these problems when we already have an abundance of food, we have a surplus food supply, and solving any sort of hunger related issues is just simply a matter of logistics and also overcoming capitalism, the profit incentive for commodity production. And yet we refuse to do that and instead offer these Band-Aid solutions. And now we're just ripping the Band-Aid off as well. So what happens? It's already ridiculous that so many people need SNAP assistance to begin with. But we have that as an additional subsidy for wages on the back end so that corporations can secure profits while underpaying its wage laborers. That's why people say Walmart is the greatest recipient of welfare, because not only does Walmart receive subsidies, but it also relies on its workers getting SNAP. And when that goes away, well, then it's crime time. Because people think, oh, it's the lazy poor that have EBT, that have SNAP, not realizing that it's actually the working poor that have SNAP. As of 2020, over 1/3 of adult SNAP recipients had at least some college education, almost 20% held an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. People don't realize this shit. It's not even just that. It's also the majority of SNAP recipients also have a job. It's not their fault that their wages are dog shit. Those in need, including older Americans, are hit hardest by these cuts. Yeah, not just a job, but full-time jobs, exactly. Our neighbors who are physically or cognitively impaired, homebound, and socially isolated are unable to access additional food. They can't travel to a local food pantry or supplement what they have. On fixed incomes, every price increase means skipping a meal or cutting a prescription in half. We estimate that nearly 13 million older Americans face food insecurity. With an aging population, that number will only grow. And yet, at the very moment, we need to understand the hunger crisis better. We're eliminator at best tool for tracking it. This is just talking about how the USDA survey was abolished, or not abolished, but stopped last month. I wonder why the administration chose to no longer track who needs food assistance. or who is at the precipice of complete hunger. Yeah, here's a map that shows which states rely on food stamps. 14% of the population in the state of California is a SNAP recipient. That's 5.3 million. 10% of the population in Texas is a SNAP recipient. That's 3.1 million. 13% of the population in Florida are SNAP recipients. That's almost 3 million. 7%, 5%, 8%, 6%, 10%, 21% in New Mexico. 12% in Arizona. 5% in Utah. 15% in Nevada. Some of these states have lower percentages of the population for SNAP recipients, not because they don't have poverty, but because their state is already made it virtually impossible to get it. They have additional hurdles to qualify. So just remember that. That doesn't mean that it's a sign of prosperity. Far from it. If you look at the percentage of the population, Wyoming has a 5% SNAP recipient population percentage, but it's not low because, I mean, I'm willing to bet if I looked into what the additional hurdles are to receive SNAP, this doesn't mean that like Wyoming is doing better overall. It just simply means that these states have extra hurdles. And Louisiana, in spite of those extra hurdles, still has an 18% rating, and New Mexico has the highest at 21%. I'm literally hearing my dad getting told the exact opposite of what you're saying from Fox right now, Law. I know Fox News is lying. Fox News' primary purpose is to basically get people like your dad to abide by a false narrative. The exact opposite, the exact inverse of reality. Fox News is billionaire news, baby. Its primary purpose is to get the working poor to feel as though others that are even less fortunate than they are somehow cynical money grubbers. You know, they're taking advantage of the government programs. That's the whole point, is to divide the working class further.
The people who receive SNAP benefits and EBT are just lazy. Hi, my name's Lacey. I'm a single mom to a medically complex child, and I work full time. I also have to pay my rent. I also have to pay her medical bills. I also have to attend IEP meetings, which I have to go to a meeting about how IEPs are no longer. Hi, hello? I have to get another job. I have to pay for childcare. Do you want to know how expensive preschool is? Do you? I have to apply to programs to help cover. Oh, wait, those programs are no longer. Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I am afraid for the children. I am afraid for seniors who are older than me. I'm afraid for people in general. We need to eat.
The USDA notices blaming illegal alien gender mutilation. What? Senate Democrats have now voted 12 times not to fund the food stamp program, also known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Bottom line, the well is run dry. It's not true. There's $5 billion that they're not tapping into. At this time, there will be no benefits issued November 1st. We are approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats. They can continue to hold out for health care for illegal aliens and gender mutilation procedures, or reopen the government so mothers, babies, and the most vulnerable among us can receive critical nutrition assistance. I mean, I don't think anybody goes to the fucking USDA website. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do. But like, not only is this a fucking obvious violation of the Hatch Act, it's also an abject lie that the government is presenting. The reason why this congressional battle, this funding battle is actually taking place is specifically because the Republicans refuse to continue funding Medicaid subsidies. That's it. So the people on Medicaid are actually going to see a triple the cost in their health care. I cannot believe it. I mean, I can believe it, but the fact that they're holding additional benefits hostage in an effort not to offer healthcare subsidies is so crazy. Fact check? What fact check? That's not true. That's not true. He says many things about the issue, but doesn't explain more further about it. That's why I'm asking, what are the hurdles? Elaborate more on what? Fact check on what? That Democrats are actually fighting this congressional battle because they want to give bottom surgeries to Guatemalan immigrants in detention facilities? No, that's wrong. What can I say beyond, no, that's just f***ing made up. It's just made up, chatter. Wake the f*** up. They lie about everything. Oh, as far as hurdles to receive SNAP, here, I'll give you an example. A lot of these assistance programs, for example, will make it incredibly difficult. Long lines that you have to wait through, for example, a mountain of paperwork that you have to fill, additional obligations that they add on, like additional checks, minimum work requirements for some people who already are working. Or, for example, they say back in the day, you would get once a year, you would have to bring in your paperwork from your job site one time so that you can actually get these benefits. But now you have to do it monthly. These are all many different ways that they try to rid people, Like they try to purge people off of the ranks of SNAP eligibility. All matter of the American welfare state works in this way. Like when they say work requirements, they don't just mean work requirements, because many people that are on welfare are already working, right? Many people that have SNAP benefits already work. What they mean is they're going to make it as difficult as possible to have you check in and show the government that you're actually working, like on a monthly basis. And God forbid there's any issues in your paperwork, then you're cooked. Then you're purged from the rolls. There are a million different incredibly sinister ways that state governments and the federal government can do this with. As a matter of fact, one of the ways that the federal government and the big beautiful bill that they just passed in the aftermath of the midterms is going to kick in additional work requirements for people to get Medicaid assistance. That is done so that tens of millions of people can be purged and no longer be eligible to get Medicaid assistance. It doesn't mean that these people aren't working. It just means that they're going to make it as difficult as possible through the portals where you put in your paperwork so that you get an automatic rejection. I'm a case manager. SNAP is insanely hard to receive. You need an ID. You need to diagnose disability if you're work exempt. You need a social security number. You need to go into the office at least once, usually. Yeah, you need to go to office once to get it, and then you're fine. But some of these states will then add additional requirements that make it so that you have to go to the office multiple times. And let's say you live in a state you live in a rural part of your state, and there's no public transit. Let's say it's very difficult for you to travel to the state office and then stand in a line for 3.5 hours because they specifically undercut the state government caseworkers because they don't want to handle all of the extra paperwork. They make it difficult as possible. We saw this during COVID. Many of the states purposely designed incredibly complex websites to offer people additional subsidies. So in order to receive the additional subsidies during COVID, you had to go to the websites by the states, and the website would brick half the time. So you couldn't even apply on the website. That was done deliberately. That was done so that people would not have ease of access. There are many different bureaucratic hurdles that the state governments place in front of people getting this aid on purpose, so they can basically eliminate as many people as possible from receiving this life-saving aid. I'm a case manager. SNAP is insanely hard to receive. You need an ID. You need to diagnose disability. If you're working SNAP, you need a social security number. You need to go to the office at least once. Usually you need a phone or some way of being contacted. You need an address. There's lots of hurdles that are not even physical barriers. Dude, you are so right. It is intentionally difficult to fuck over the most vulnerable amongst us. Exactly. They don't openly say, we want to kill the working poor. At least yet. They don't say that yet. They might in the future, but they don't say that right now. They say, oh, a lot of people are taking advantage of the expansive welfare state, which we don't really have an expansive welfare state regardless, but they say a lot of people are taking advantage of it. They're lazy. So we have to ensure that people aren't cheating the system. Meanwhile, because of all of the limitations that I described, there is no problem with quote unquote cheating the system. The real problem is that people who need this assistance can't even get it already. To echo the other case manager, it's very frustrating the amount of times that I've been to SNAP or to benefits office to try to help. It's an all-day process. Many times my clients got frustrated that they just left. I can't blame them, but now when I was on SNAP, I had to attend bi-weekly meetings that were an hour from my home. The meetings were about finding a job. I had 3 jobs at the time. If you missed one, you lost your benefits from the month. I missed them all the time because I was working. You know, the thing they said I needed to do to qualify. It's all on purpose. After 5 missed classes, you lost benefits and couldn't apply for 13 months. The amount of social torture that you have to withstand to get a crumb of assistance in this goddamn government is so insane. And many people are utterly oblivious to that reality, unfortunately. And those who are fortunate enough to never have to deal with this shit don't understand what it takes and are also negatively polarized against it, because the television, Fox News specifically, is constantly saying these guys are broke monsters. They're poor because of a moral failing, and they're actually cheating the government. They don't want to work. They're lazy, and they're taking advantage of your tax dollars. Or in the case of this government, they just straight up lie and say it's the undocumented migrants that are doing this. Undocumented migrants can't even take advantage of any of this shit. I spent time working in fraud investigation for SNAP too, and it might legitimately have been the worst experience I've ever had in my life. Nobody's trying to cheat the system on purpose. People are trying to defraud SNAP are in a situation so desperate that they've determined that it's worth the risk of lying. That's where we're at in the United States of America, baby. And of course, when you're starving, you're gonna do crime. It's like the most basic principle. Like, if you're starving, what are you supposed to do? Like, I can't fault them. I can't fault people for trying to steal shit. They're starving. And then we can talk about how crime is out of control and it needs military intervention. Meanwhile, those veteran families also receive SNAP. I cannot think of a more insane analogy where the psychotic billionaire-backed administration is building a fucking ballroom while 40 million Americans are about to lose the marginal assistance that they get to eat food every day. This is the richest nation on the planet. And then we wonder to ourselves, like, why are people becoming more open-minded towards socialism? I wonder why, dude. Why the fuck do you think? Yes, I have thought about putting on a drive for a food bank. Yes, I'm working on it. So some people cheat the system or no? Exactly, that was my point. Listen to him. You told me that 0 people cheat the system, lol. And Hasan said the complete opposite. Sit this one out. Fake lib. Yeah, you're right, dude. People actually are becoming millionaires by cheating the SNAP system. No, dude, it's because the fiscal cliff that exists, like the benefits cliff that exists, makes it so that they have to fucking cheat, as opposed to having no benefits cliff whatsoever. If you were even remotely competent and understood how any of this stuff works, you would understand that there are a lot of people who are directly in the fucking margins. They're just right on the fucking margin of those benefits. They still need it. Hasan is a terrorist, and if you watch this idiot, you're just as brainwashed. God, I fucking love these dipshits, dude. Oh my God. Enjoy your parents and your grandparents starving, chatter. Your fucking goat did this, okay? You can go to sleep hungry every night and close your eyes and imagine how beautiful the fucking ballroom for your big, beautiful president is going to look like. You can eat those dreams instead, moron. Are work requirements important in your opinion? Fuck no. Fuck no. Absolutely not. No, it doesn't work that way anyway. We're talking about food, man. That's crazy. I love this idea that people are like, well, if there's no work requirements, everyone will stop working. And then what? Live off of $25 in assistance a week? Like, what are you, crazy? Yeah, thank God for those work requirements. Okay, that's not the reason why 80% of people on SNAP are working already. These arguments are 100 years old. I know. No, not even. Especially if we're talking about crime and the likelihood of crime happening as a consequence of poverty. That argument is thousands of years old. It's not even hundreds of years old. Thousands. Okay? The Romans knew this reality. Ancient Greece, they knew this reality. I'm sure the Hittites, the Sumerians knew about it too. I don't know how far it goes, but this argument has been around for quite a while, okay? The benefits cliff is insane for everything. I used to work in a restaurant. We ended up having really good holiday season. I made $1,000 too much for the year and ended up owing $4,000 for ACA subsidies I no longer qualify for. It was horrible. It took me all year to pay it. Yeah, that's another reason why I advocate for universal health care. The benefits cliff is insane, okay? It makes no damn sense. Do you think this person is a cheater? Because that's what the government thinks. That the government's saying, oh, well, made $1,000 over the line that you can't cross. So sorry. Now we got to claw back those additional subsidies. A benefits cliff is, let's say, up to $30,000, you get Medicaid coverage, okay? As in the government gives you $4,000 a year to pay for your health care. If you make $31,000 because you have a dynamic salary due to being in the service sector and the amount of tips that you get, all of a sudden, at $1 past the point of that $30,000 limit means you are no longer eligible for the additional subsidies that you have received that past year. Therefore, you have to pay it back to the government. That's what a benefits cliff is. If you're getting $4,000 in assistance at the $30,000 price point, technically, you're better off not making that extra $1,000 because now you have to pay $3,000 additional dollars to the federal government, as opposed to receiving a total with your benefits, $34,000 a year. That is what is known as a benefits cliff. And the greatest elimination of said benefits cliff is universality. universal policies, universal health care, universal child care.
A series of staffing shortages Sunday prompted a temporary ground stop at LAX, with additional delays reported in Newark, Chicago, and Washington, D.C.
We had 22 staffing triggers. That's one of the highest that we've seen in the system since the shutdown began, and that's a sign that the controllers are wearing thin.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture also issued a dire warning about the food stamp program SNAP, which covers more than 40 million Americans. The agency bluntly stated on its website, the well has run dry. At this time, there will be...
I guess technically this is universal when you think about it. The only time where there is universality is when they just shut the faucet entirely and they over the working poor unconditionally across the board. 40 million Americans. I work in healthcare regulatory policy. I can attest that the big bill work requirements will remove caregivers from Medicaid benefits that otherwise allow them to be full-time caregivers for their children or completely dependent parents. That means patients relying on 24/7 caregiving by a relative will no longer have them at home. With excruciating home healthcare costs, patients, mostly kids, will die from preventable complications. Former dependent of a vet here. My family relies on SNAP, myself and my 2 kids. I am unable to afford childcare, so we rely on SNAP, $725 a month or so. And I just got a bill for $4,000 for 10 fucking years ago for the birth of my son from when I was on TRICARE. So now no SNAP and new debt looming over our heads. I have 2 autistic kids who only eat very specific safe foods. Food banks are not an option for us. This is the reality of many Americans. There are 40 million Americans like that. Okay, 40 million. I work for a government contractor and they sent out a whole sheet of resources, aka loan programs to help workers during this unprecedented time, loans to live. Don't worry, dude. We got Klarna. We can use Klarna to pay for your groceries. Klarna for all. I've literally never heard of that. Klarna is a credit company that famously partners up with like Postmates and shit. So you can actually take out loans, like micro loans, to pay for your pizza delivery. It's awesome. Yeah, Lamau, except they make you pay a quarter up front. Yeah, put your fucking burrito purchase on a payment plan, dude. Motherfuckers used to finance houses, and then we started financing cars. Now we're financing burritos, dude. We're financing Taco Bell, and no one looks at that and goes, I think this system is fucking broken. It is so insane to me that we're just out here being like, America, the wealthiest nation on earth. Unimaginable amounts of debt. So much debt that motherfuckers are taking on debt to eat burritos. What are we doing? Oh God, the GDP though. Man, that's called innovation. Yeah, that's that beautiful GDP growing innovation right there. You don't understand. Burrito debt. Now we have another company. I've been financing gas and it's awful like my bank figured me out. The money that doesn't get used to pay the burrito can be put in a Roth that beats the stock market, then use those earnings to pay it off. Why hasn't anybody just said that they're Argentina so they can get bailed out? Hello, Mr. President. I'm Argentina, the beautiful nation state. Please give me $20 billion. Otherwise, if you do not give me $20 billion, I might default on my debt. And you have some very powerful Americans who have purchased my debt. Oh, wow. Thank you. You're doubling the money for no reason, and you will now give me $40 billion? Yeah, yo soy Argentina.